Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Welcome to Ask Rob and Rob. It's Tuesday. We're back once again answering your property questions. Well, maybe not yours unless your name is Lukas or George, but we could answer yours, couldn't we, Rob?
We definitely should have put those names the other way around, but it doesn't matter. I'm sure the property answering force will be with us. And if you want your questions answered, you don't need to use the force. You just need to use one of these methods. You can call in on 013-808-00035, or you can go to propertyhub.net/ask. Either way, it's super simple, so get your question in. But before you do that, let's listen to what Lukas has to ask.
Hey, Rob and Rob. Just listened to my first webinar and enjoyed it. Thank you very much on the total returns formula. The question I've got is that a couple of years ago, I remortgaged a property and the valuation was slightly under the original purchase price for a couple of years previous. So I had to put some extra cash in when I remortgaged. The concern I've got is remortgaging other properties that I own over the next couple of years. Price has been high, getting a good bit of leverage and getting some money back out. But then when I come to remortgage again in, say, 2 years' time, 5 years' time, prices have plummeted after a crash and I've got to put a load more money in. Just wondered what your thoughts, advice would be on that. Thank you.
Luke, it's a great question. Thank you. Not too sure what happened with the property where you had to put extra cash in, because obviously we don't have that detail. But so let's focus on the main core of your questions. If you refinance other properties and then the market crashes. Well, the first thing is, do you know when the market's going to crash? Because we don't. I know we talk about the 18-year property cycle a lot and we talk about dates in the future that it could happen, but nobody knows for sure when it's going to happen. Now, most people, ourselves included, think the market's going to rise over the next few years. And it will depend on who you listen to whether how much the market's going to rise, because people have different opinions. But the general consensus is over the next few years, the market will move up. Now, if you buy into that, then you shouldn't overly worry, because if we look at previous crashes and by how much they fall on average, then you shouldn't be overly concerned. And the reason why is during a boom phase before a market crash, the market pushes on strongly year after year. And an average correction or crash is around about 20%. So all you need to see is 20% or more gains before the next crash and you're up. And actually, if you listen to our 18-year property cycle that we put out a few weeks back, we feel it's going to be multiple years before that crash. Now, that's just us, and there's no promises, and it could go the other way. But why does it matter? Because if you've taken cash out, bought more assets, hopefully some of them have gone up, maybe some have gone into negative equity after a crash, but they all should be bringing in a healthy income. Remember, the rental market doesn't crash. It's just prices. So unless you're forced to sell, it shouldn't hurt you too much. Now, I know you're probably concerned about remortgaging and having to put more cash in, but when your mortgage product comes to an end, you don't have to take a new product. You can move on to the standard variable rate, which is basically your product outside of its kind of bonus rate. Now, last time around after the 2008 crash, interest rates started to drop quite dramatically. And the standard variable rates ended up being better deals than the mortgage products that people were on before the crash. I myself benefited from this. Now, again, I can't say that's going to happen and you can't plan for that. But what you can do if you want to plan is look at taking longer mortgages, say maybe 5-year mortgages. So if there is a crash during that time period, then you hopefully have recovered a bit by the time you come to remortgage. Or just keep an eye on what the standard variable rates are and go, okay, if I had to pay this, would I be happy? I just look at it and take a view. There are lots of different ways to approach this. What I would advise you do as a next step is speak to an experienced, and the key word is experienced, mortgage broker who has worked with property investors, who will look at these things for you, which will include longer-term products that have reasonable standard variable rates, and other ways as well. There's more ways you can tackle this. I think what this comes down to, Lukas, is I wouldn't be deterred. Yes, if you're concerned, you can have a few extra conversations and make better decisions. But I personally, I'm not worried about any mortgages I'm taking out at the moment because I feel there's a good few years to run. If you don't feel that way, then speak to a broker, get that advice, look at the different products that are available out to you because more and more are coming to the market, and give yourself peace of mind and comfort that way. The worst thing you can probably do is stay out of the market because you'll just watch on the sidelines it go up and then feel frustrated. So that little bit of effort is worthwhile.
A nice, comprehensive and reassuring answer there, Rob. Let's see what we can do next for George.
Hi, Rob and Rob. My name's George. I'm from Bristol. I'm just calling with a question about property prices in rural areas. I'm looking at purchasing a property that's in a reasonably small village just outside Bristol, and planning is currently going through for that village to almost double in size. It makes me hesitant about purchasing property in the area because I feel as though with more supply in that village, house prices will be less likely. It's a home for me to live in, so it's not an investment query. I'm not looking at it wholly for capital growth, but I do worry about it to some extent and wondered what your experiences were with regards to house prices when further dwellings are introduced to a village. Thank you.
George, thank you for your question. Really interesting. And I think the key point here is that you're looking to buy this as your home to live in. Because if you were looking at this as a pure investment play, this isn't necessarily the first thing I'd be looking at. We've talked extensively in the past about how we look at city centre property, or we look at properties with very strong commuter links into a major city for reasons of capital growth and rentability and all that sort of thing. None of that means that more rural property can't work as investments. Clearly it can, but it's just not what I would favour. In this case, though, you've acknowledged it's a home for you to live in, so you're not looking at it just as an investment, but are you going to be punished for wanting to live in that area? And I think the answer is no. And the reason for that is that villages or towns or cities, whatever the unit size you're looking at, when something expands, it becomes more desirable and actually creates its own demand. A really clear example of this was Manchester city centre. For years, there were thousands of apartments under development in Manchester city centre, and hardly anyone it was pretty much a single-digit number of thousands of people lived in the city centre of Manchester itself. And everyone was saying, this is madness. Why is everyone building all this stuff? No one is ever going to want to live there. It'll be a ghost town. What actually happened? Well, people did move into those apartments in the city centre. As a result of people moving in, more and more local businesses set up. The city centre became a more desirable place to live. That drew in more people. And now there's a massive undersupply of units in the city centre, and they actually need to be building a lot more. Obviously, here we're talking about a village, but the principle is exactly the same. The more an area expands, the more desirable it becomes. And obviously, this takes time. So it may be that you're the first person to move into this expanded village, and for the first 6 months, loads of the properties are empty, and for the next couple of years, not a whole lot is going on. But eventually, you'll see things develop, you'll see more shops and services and infrastructure moving in, and then you'll probably see a lot more expansion. The fancy term for it is agglomeration effects, but basically it is exactly what I've just described. So basically, I would say that if you were looking at this as your home that you're going to live in for a long time, and you want to know if this extra supply is going to be a bad thing for your home as an investment, I would say it almost certainly over the long term isn't. So, George, hope that helps. Rob, you can make some more Star Wars jokes now if you want to.
No, Rob, I don't want to do any more jokes. People will just fade or out of the episode. So that's us done for another week. We'll be back with Ask Rob and Rob next Tuesday. And, of course, we'll be back with the Property Podcast on Thursday. So make sure you join us then. Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.